Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night. It is your boy BD. And today I got a review video slash discussion video on what is the absolute pinnacle, the absolute peak fiction, the best thing that I have experienced in the horror genre thus far. Definitively across all different genres, whether it be movies, TV shows, books, kids horror, young adult horror, adult horror, all that. What is the absolute zenith, the peak, the Mount Everest as to what I consider the best in the horror genre? Well, that is none other than a novella-length short story that came from one of my favorite short story collections by one of my favorite authors. This novella-length short story is one of the best things, not just that I've read in the horror genre, but one of the best things I've ever experienced in general, okay? I would put this piece of fiction on the same tier as I do some of my favorite mangas and anime, like One Piece. One Piece, for those of you who don't know, is what I consider to be one of the best series of all time, period. Avengers Infinity War, some great things out there. John Wick 4, some things that I consider to be the absolute peak of the medium in terms of just entertainment and fiction in general. This would be up there. This is how good it is. It would be up there in general. So let alone with that being a factor, this is easily without a doubt the best thing I've experienced in horror personally. And that is The Butcher's Table, a short story by Nathan Ballingrud from his short story collection, Wounds, 6 Stories from the Border of Hell. I've talked about this book a lot. I'm going to link my 2 other videos that I've made about this book in the description down below so you can watch those. Those are me talking about the entire books as a whole, first being my main review and the second one being why I love it. But this is a video specifically talking about the best story in that collection, the specific story that I'm covering today. This story, The Butcher's Table, is the last story within that book. It's the last big crescendo, the big grand finale to that book. And although it's an anthology short story collection, you have to understand what makes this story so good. And to build up off of that, that's the fact that Nathan Ballingrud's book, Wounds, 6 Stories from the Border of Hell, is a dark fantasy, world-building horror book. It has 6 anthological stories with all different characters, different time periods, different locations. But the one thing they share in common is they all revolve around the same dark fantasy world that Ballingrud has created that he's titled Hell. Now, for those of you who are scared or you get a little bit iffy in terms of reading like religious type of horror that deals with hell and stuff, this story and this short story collection is not in ties to biblical hell. This is a completely fabricated, a completely unique dark fantasy world painted to you by the author, and it has a bunch of different unique and crazy monsters, some lore, some landscapes, and wild stuff that all gets featured within the first 5 stories, and the last story is basically wrapping it up. It's this big crescendo event to basically give you a grand finale in a sense. This last story, The Butcher's Table, is like the Avengers Endgame. It's like the Avengers Infinity War / Endgame to this book. So that's sort of what makes Nathan Ballingrud so good, is the fact that he is an author who's able to give world-building capabilities in horror that rivals some of the best world-building that I've seen in my favorite genres, like One Piece, like Marvel and all these superhero shows that they take time to specifically brag about their world building. This guy's writing short story collections casually, and he's fucking doing world building that rivals that shit. And on top of that, it's horror. So you got some scary ass monsters, some brutal violence, some extreme horror stuff, some dark themes. So you got all that good stuff that's usually missing from those other series. So this hits a certain sweet spot. All right, let's just say the dragon was rising. No pun intended. The dragon was rising during this read when I first read this book, and especially this short story. But without further ado, let's talk about the short story, because this short story, The Butcher's Table, listen, there are scenes in anime when the main characters are considered to be strong characters will encounter a new threat. They'll encounter a new villain that has this fucking aura, that has this fucking presence, this power level to them, that everybody sees that shit and they go, Nani? Nandeska, what the hell is that? If you had Clive Barker, Stephen King, Joe Hill, Anne Rice, fucking Jonathan Mayberry, Brian Keene, fucking who else? Josh Strand. If you had all these famous authors, these famous horror authors, Riley Sager, low diff. Riley Sager's getting low diffed in this case. Richard Lehman, mid diff, low to mid diff. If those people read this story by Nathan Ballingrud, all of them would be like, oh fuck. They'd be like, oh shit. Yo, new challengers. And they'd be like, oh fuck. They're like, this man might put us out of a career. They're like, yo, this man is on a different fucking level. This man is a brand new threat. This man is on some Super Saiyan shit. This man is going Super Saiyan in front of us. Meanwhile, we're looking like fucking Tien. We're just sitting there like, all three eyes, fucking, pretend I have a third eye. Well, I got a third eye, but I can't show that third eye. What the fuck is that? That's what would happen when they read this shit. The Butcher's Table is basically Pirates of the Caribbean meets hell. I don't gotta go further than that. That's really all you fucking need. Pirates of the Caribbean meets a dark fantasy world of hell. That's all you need to pick up the book. But I'm gonna continue. The story opens up with a guy named Martin Dunwood. Martin Dunwood is this guy who's a part of a satanic cult that's well established within this world of the book. And this satanic cult is called the Candlelight Society. And they are going to be participating in a joint expedition, a voyage with a bunch of pirates and another cult who is one of the longest running cults in like all of the world that deals with Satanism. These three forces, the Candlelight Society representative Martin Dunwood, a bunch of pirates and criminals that are well experienced who are going to be operating the pirate ship, and another major cult that's one of the longest and most richest secret societies in the world. All three of them as a trinity are uniting together to go and voyage to hell. They're going to get the preparations done so they can voyage to the coastline of hell across these seas. And that way when they get there, it's going to be all for a big celebration, because apparently these cults have a huge celebration, a big monumental event where they have this large, eloquent cannibal feast that is hosted on the shoreline, the coastline of hell, where they invite the Prince of Darkness, Satan himself, to go and dine with them. And let's just say that upon this journey, a lot of crazy stuff happens. So Martin Dunwood himself, as I mentioned, he's part of this cult. You find out that he's a pretty deviant guy, because the way that he managed to become the representative of entering this feast's voyage is because he poisoned all the other members of his cult. You see a scene where they're at a dining table. They're trying to decide who would go there. You got all the older people in masks. There's this uncomfortable feeling because you know the nature of these men, but they're also eloquent and they got the sense of power to them, the sense of order, ordered crime in a sense. And when Martin finds out that he's not the one, he basically grins and laughs like a maniacal villain, because they finds out that he poisoned all of them. And he did that because the daughter of the major cannibal priest in the world, the guy who's a part of the other long-running, very rich secret society cult, who's like fucking rich as hell, his daughter, who's the daughter of the cannibal priest, is in love with Martin. Yeah, they got a freaky deaky relationship going on that may or may not have came from the fact that they shared some human cattle together. Listen, me and Felicia had some freaky, kinky nights. Nothing on the level of these motherfuckers. These motherfuckers are on a different goddamn level. A little too freaky deek in the sheety sheets, if you get my drift. But that's how they roll. They got this love relationship that they know is taboo, that they know is not going to work. They got this weird, freaky Romeo and Juliet twisted thing going on. And they decide, you know what, we're going to link together and run off into hell. Happily, marry after, like a fucking honeymoon, except it's in hell. All right. You got the captains of the pirate ship, and a guy named Captain Toussaint, who he had a lover and a mentor figure who had actually traveled once to the shoreline of hell before. So he's had experience, and he discussed tales about, these pirate ships of these scorched, burnt up corpses of soldiers that would serve hell as sort of like police officers to guard and make sure nobody could enter without permission. And they're called like the order, they're called like the Black Law, the Order of the Black Law. Again, these charred up soldiers who basically run on these all black, ships. And it's described that, his captain had disappeared, but there was urban legends of this ship that would sail across the seas with the bones of its victims on the ship that would rattle as it moved. Some freaky ass crazy lore involving these characters. You got some heavy hitter characters here. And of course you got this criminal guy, this slime ball, this lowlife, who's sent to be the bodyguard of the main character. And he's a criminal. You got some great descriptions by Nathan Ballingrud that when he's moving through this town that they're docked at, he moves like a moray eel through a reef, going through cracks and crevices like the slimy creature he is. Great descriptions. He's a lowlife who basically is using this opportunity to basically kind of become more than he ever dreamed he could be. He's trying to act like he's the main character, and maybe he has some plans that get revealed later on that may thwart the plans of certain other characters. So basically, you got a lot of strong-willed people with all their different crazy stories that are coming together on this crazy voyage off into hell. And you find out that this is not going to be an easy journey. There is going to be some crazy fucking wild shit, some crazy action scenes, some gore, some violence, some insane imagery that happens throughout this voyage. And one of the biggest things is when they're in this Caribbean town that's filled with all different types of pirates and criminals at taverns, the horror tavern, drinking and partying and having sex and falling over dead and getting exhausted. I love the setting of pirates. Pirates and cowboys are one of my favorite settings in fiction, especially when it's done in horror. And I love seeing the whole typical pirate setting, people drinking, people with blunderbusses shooting each other, Wild West kind of shootouts. People got sabers and are slashing each other, knives, cutting each other open. You got women and prostitutes and all this crazy shit going on. One giant pirate party. And you get introduced to some potential creatures that may or may not be targeting this voyage, because in order to get to hell, they have some black market cargo on board the ship, and this pirate ship is called the Butcher's Table, hence the name of the story. This pirate ship, the Butcher's Table, has a creature that belongs to hell called the Lotus Head. A Lotus Head is essentially this anemone-looking creature. It's like a plant anemone, but it's made out of this old, raggy human flesh. It's got little mouths with teeth inside of it. It looks like a folded, like if you took a mango and you folded it inside out, sort of what it looks like. And it's called an anemone because it's got these little thousands of tongues that basically move like anemone feelers. So this creature is disgusting. It's weird. It's pretty much dead all the time that you're in front of it. But the reason why it's important is because when you cut this creature open, it starts bellowing out the dialects of hell, the language of hell, that basically opens up the portal and allows you into passage towards the world of hell across the sea. So they need this thing. But it just so happens that it is the favorite food item of some predators from hell. And these predators are called Carian Angels. Yeah, that's right. Carian like corpses. Carian Angels. These Carian Angels are 7-foot tall bird humanoid creatures. They're made out of complete, black rags and cloth. You'll see them in the thumbnail of this video. A picture of them will be on there. They got this cloth coming out of their hair like dreadlocks, their tentacles or whatever. And of course, they're 7 foot tall. Their bones make these like twisting and snapping noises as they always move. They're very loud. And, they look like a mix between a witch and a crow. If you took like a vulture and crow and mixed it with like a witch, you would get this sort of creature. It's got a long beak with jagged teeth inside of it. And the coolest part about it is it's got these flaming red eyes that have smoke that will-o-wisps out of them. Kind of like if you've ever burnt a stick of incense. When incense burns and has that trailing smoke behind it, that's what comes out of these coal red eyes that constantly burn. And that's to represent, The eyes are the gateway to the soul. This thing has a burning presence inside of it, and that's why it leaks through the eyes so much. So, very cool descriptions by Ballingrud. It's some of the most amazing creature feature action you'll get, and these things are horrifying. They are known as the holy cockroaches that feed upon anything that travels from heaven and hell into the mortal world. These creatures are vicious. They're able to fly. They attack people. They feed on stinking, rotting, dead corpses of people. And the most terrifying ability they have is they can possess hosts. And the way they possess hosts is they will drill an opening or a gash into your body, and they have the ability to turn into smoke. They have the ability to turn into smoke and rags, and that's how they sort of travel. They get enhanced mobility through that. Plus 100 stealth. They're able to turn into smoke and rags and float through the air like, just a pile of smoke and trash. And that way they can maneuver. And they're able to turn into this form when they cut a hole open inside of your body, and then they'll flood inside of there. And it's described as somebody putting on a jacket that's about 5 sizes too small for them. When they enter your body, your bones will start to snap and crack. Your joints will start ripping off into different places. Your skull will start elongating and getting pushed out while your skin bruises, and parts of your body like your shoulder blades, your neck, your chest, and your skull will rip open as smoke floods out of it from the angel's presence, and feathers will start emerging outside of those holes as well. So you look like a fucked up marionette puppet that this fucker is controlling. So that's how these creatures are able to move, and they'll start manipulating your vocal cords and start making ungodly noises out of them. They do some crazy shit. And you even got a scene where one of these Carian Angels, while it's inhabiting a host, sends a signal to one of the 3 angels that are sitting on top of this mast of a pirate ship that they hijacked. And the angel leaps off of the mast and straight up plummets into the deep blue abyss of the sea. It dive bombs into the ocean like a seagull, continues to plummet down fast and fast. Once, so deep into the ocean that sunlight cannot reach there, goes all the way into the abyss where it starts to locate the moving objects and creatures that are there, and it enters a 40-foot squid. It enters one of those giant squids that you see on National Geographic that fight with sperm whales down there. The same creatures that inspired the legend of the Kraken. It possesses a giant 40-foot squid or even larger than that maybe, by basically ripping a hole open in its skin, doing the same procedure where it enters, rips open the body, marionettes it, and this Kraken-sized squid basically launches out of the water and starts attacking the protagonist's ship. It starts floating because the angel is possessing it. It starts floating in the air with its tentacles thrashing around, grabbing mast and ripping them off, trying to pull the boat apart. Meanwhile, smoke is billowing out of its eyes like incense smoke to indicate that the angels are inside of it, on top of feathers poking out of the different wounds that got ripped in it. So it's one of the most badass scenes ever. You get more Carian Angel action that I will keep silent so that way you can experience it if you read the story, which I pray you do. And another cool thing is you get so many tidbits about lore involving hell, more than what I'm describing. And one of them that I want to describe to you is a scene where basically the main characters, especially Martin Dunwood, who's your protagonist, he's the guy who poisoned all the people in the Candlelight Society. And he has these ritualistic 3 black candles that are given by the Candlelight Society. And by burning one of these candles, you are able to telepathically communicate to a priest, a monk, who are basically a part of this, religious clan that are cartographers. They take voyages and pilgrimages into hell to basically track its landscapes, its creatures, its different, basically kind of just information about it, and record it. So that way people have this information. So you have to basically get into contact with one of these monks, and they will be the ones who guide you into hell across the shoreline. Now, you won't be able to voyage into the mainland country of hell like they are able to do, but they're at least able to get you into the door alongside the shore. So you need to get into communication with them. And by burning this candle, you're able to telepathically enter their mind and communicate to them. So the main characters on top of this butcher's table have to get into contact with the priest, and this monk, this monk, who in the book, it's called the monks that belong to the Order of the Black Iron. One of the most fucking badass group names I've ever heard in my life. The Order of the Black Iron. Woo! Oh, wait, that is spicy. That is good. The Order of the Black Iron are these monks who wear these long black robes. And what's weird about them, they have these metal boxes over their head, kind of like astronauts wearing helmets. And that's because you cannot enter the mainland country of hell without basically getting one-shotted. You will get killed by whatever's there. You will get burned to crisp. You'll get burned to embers. Or if you hear any of the frequencies that are emitted from hell, you will go crazy and you'll start transforming into tumorous monsters, or God knows what else may happen to you. So they have to basically keep these helmets on their heads, these iron boxes. They have to keep it on their heads for the rest of their lives. It's a binding vow that they take before they enter this, monastery. And by taking this binding vow, they're able to go take pilgrimages across hell. And while they're covered in darkness, they don't need food. They no longer need sustenance. They just basically rot inside of this helmet, and they're able to basically use extraordinary senses to travel, as well as use creatures of hell to basically help guide them across the landscape. So these guys are basically superheroes. They're basically on another level. They are basically mythical figures amongst themselves. So it's only fitting that when they get into contact with one of the monks, he has the most badass fucking entrance I've ever seen for a villain in horror, let alone in general. The way he enters and greets himself to these people, because the monks don't talk, they're completely silent, they're completely meticulous. They go out into this dark abyss of the sea that lets them know that they're getting closer to hell. And in this dark abyss of the sea, it's like pure black water with raging waves. They see the head of a giant. They see the head of a giant. It has like half of its face sticking out of the water, so you can only see its eyes and the top of its head. It's this huge black head of a giant, half of the head of this giant. It's described to have skin as black as ink, and it's got these giant white eyes that are pupilless and irisless, so they're just completely blind. And it's got these tentacles around his body that are also flowing out and letting it move. So they see this thing through the spyglass, and they're like, yo, Captain, you see that shit? Like, what the fuck is that? And they're like, yo, that's one of the creatures from hell. And even the captain looks at the protagonist, and he's like, that's not the monk, is it? Because that motherfucker is not getting near us. He's like, no, that's not the monk. That's the vessel that he's riding in. And you're like, what the fuck did this man just say? Did you just say the monk is riding in that thing? Excuse me, sir? Repeat that. There's no need to repeat. You know why? Because the head then raises out of the water, this humongous giant black head, and the tentacles start moving and start propelling it through the water towards this little dinghy boat that's sent to retrieve the monk and bring it back to the pirate ship. And then it opens up its mouth, its gaping mouth with these huge white teeth, and this red tongue slides across the water. The tongue is several yards long, and on the tip of this giant tongue is the monk. The monk of the black iron, like a fucking Chad, is just sitting there, arms folded, just completely still, just not making a sound, as still as a statue on top of this tongue as it's rolling out towards the ship like a red carpet. This man got a red carpet from hell in the mouth of a giant. Half of its head was the size of a hill. Its whole head is the size of a mountain. What's the rest of the body look like? What else could be under the water? What the fuck, man? This man just rode in the mouth of a kaiju. He's built different. He's got the aura. Yo. And that's why you need to read this short story. Because I haven't even covered 60 50% of the rest of the stuff that's involved within the story. So please go check it out. This novella has some of the best creature feature action, some of the best visual stuff you will ever see, some of the best writing. It's got amazing descriptions. His prose, Nathan Ballingrud's prose, is extremely well done. All the characters got their own layers and stories and narratives that are running. They all got their own stories, their own purposes, and they're all interlocking together. And meanwhile, you're getting all this incredible lore, this world building of this dark fantasy world that Ballingrud has created. And you get some awesome action scenes, some pirate fight scenes, a bunch of different cool and badass shit. So please, go check out The Butcher's Table by Nathan Ballingrud, because this is without a doubt the best thing that I have ever read in terms of horror. This is the peak. This is the pinnacle of horror without a shadow of a doubt. And that's all I got for today. 10 out of 10, of course. Perfect. Hall of Fame, Michael Jordan level score. If you guys enjoyed, feel free. Listen, if you got fingers, I assume all of you guys got fingers. If you don't, I still love you. But use that mouse, use those fingers, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button down below. It's free way to support me. Comment down below. Have you read the story? Have you read stuff by Nathan Ballingrud? How do you feel about him? And if not, go check it out and then come back and comment on this video. I pray that this video goes viral. I hope that this is my most viewed video on my channel, just for the simple reason that I want more people to put respect on Nathan Ballingrud's name. He's a genius. The stuff he writes is genius. There's nobody out there right now that can beat him, and I am looking. I got fingers crossed for the day that I may find something that can surpass this work that I talked about in the video. But if not, it is what it is. I can die happy knowing that I got to read something like this. Stay tuned for more content to come on the Horror Tavern, and deuces.